Hey, welcome back. Just half past the top of the hour, high noon Eastern here in New York. Coming to you live every day, Monday to Friday on Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV from the Question Tequila studios. And today we were at Newsmax headquarters here in Midtown Manhattan. Dow Jones still tinkering around 26.5, Bitcoin just above 10,000. And on Liquid Lunch, we try to demonstrate our bipartisanship by having Democrats and Republicans on as often as we can. And we also try to bring you not these talking heads from Harvard and Yale who get paid to go on TV and be pundits. We try to bring you real people. I always say we bring you people who know where the rubber meets the road. And we're not afraid to bring anyone on if it's going to be of value to you. And joining us today is Andrew McKenna, a great value to you and us. I want to thank you, Andrew, for joining us today on Liquid Lunch. He's a former Air Force and Marine veteran, attorney, turned federal prosecutor, turned bank robber, turned federal prisoner. And his book, Sheer Madness, tells the story of a man who goes from a prominent federal prosecutor to a drug-addicted bank robber and federal prisoner. And Andrew, this is some ride you've been on, and now you've turned that into positives by going out and talking to people and working with treatment centers on how you can still turn your life around after all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be with you guys. You know, it was a completely wild ride, you know, obviously, and I write about it in the book. But, you know, the most poignant thing coming up is the elections in 2020, you know, right down the road from us, and focusing on treatment programs and treatment availability for people who are addicted. Nobody wants to be addicted. And so the emphasis I put on things, John and Frank, is, you know, this is not a moral failing. I lived it, hurt my back in the Marine Corps. You know, eventually over the course of years, I went with the Justice Department as a prosecutor and started taking pain medicine. And the doctor freely prescribed it. Not his fault. Doctors have to be able to treat pain. But he didn't sense that I was escalating into an addiction to the pain meds. And so I think, you know, as we see candidates prepare for the election and in these debates, we can get into the debates in a little while, but the last debate was just mind-boggling to me. But, you know, in any event, you know, the focus has to be on getting people well.
Andrew, I definitely want to come back to the opioid issue because it's a huge one. Today, by the way, John reported earlier that the vice president's airplane was supposed to land in New Hampshire and was turned around right before landing to go back to the White House. We don't necessarily know the reason why that's the case, but he was going to visit one of these recovery facilities and meet with the alumni of one of these facilities and give a big speech about opioid addiction. Why do you think the opioid crisis has gotten so out of control? We lost more people last year to drug overdoses than we did in the entire Vietnam War. How can that be? How did we get here?
Well, we got here a couple different avenues. One, overprescribing of pain medicine. If you look at West Virginia, I represent a treatment facility called Harmony Ridge Recovery, wonderful treatment. But we look at West Virginia, we look at Ohio, we look at Pennsylvania. These are just hot pockets of opioid abuse. And if you look at the prescribing practices of physicians and pharmacies, it's mind-boggling to really understand per capita how many pills are being prescribed.
Well, you actually saw just a few months ago that one of these companies that was making these addictive drugs was actually knowingly making them more addictive.
That's right.
And incentivizing pharmacists through their sales force to give people the more addicting ones.
That's right.
So I think they're going to be held criminally liable, which they should be, because they were celebrating getting kids addicted to opioids.
That's right.
Sick.
That's right. It's sick. It's Purdue Pharma, I think is what you're referring to.
Yeah, Purdue.
The Sackler family in Connecticut, and, you know, making billions and billions of dollars. But you're exactly right, John. I mean, they're marketing these things to doctors. And when they first came out, you know, with OxyContin, which is heroin in a pill form, they prescribed it and then they marketed it and saying this is not addictive. I mean, it's so literally absurd.
Even though they knew that it probably was.
Even though they were having parties with a big pill dance, cartoon pill dancing around. Yay, we got them all addicted. Yippee.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is
John.
sick.
Yeah.
And you're serving our country. Thank you for your service, Marine, Air Force. And then you get hurt. You start taking pills. You become a prosecutor. You're hiding the pill issue, obviously, while you're prosecuting cases on behalf of the government. And then everything hits the fan, and you wind up in such a desperate place that you start robbing banks?
I know. It doesn't make sense, even as I look back on it. But there was something that, first of all, the withdrawal effects from OxyContin are like nothing I ever experienced. So you're sick, you're vomiting, you want to die. It's like the flu times 50. I don't know how else to explain it. And in my desperation, I ended up one day waking up and driving to a bank, and I walked in and I robbed it. And, you know, my life was
so how does that go down? Just for our audience, in case they're thinking about robbing banks, and we're not advocating for that, but you just kind of walk in with like a bandana over your face and say, give me all the money, or?
John, I was dressed just like I am today. With the, you know, my suit needed to be pressed, my shirt needed, you know, the tie was kind of dirty, but I had a baseball cap on. And I'll never forget my father, who never did anything wrong in his life, university professor for 50 years. And he said, Andrew, you didn't even wear a disguise, you know, and that's, you know, Irish Catholic from the Bronx, you know, and his sense of humor. But, you know, the fact is that people can slip very quickly into depression and anxiety and into addiction and act irrationally. I mean, I was in the throes of a demonic addiction.
No, I've read your book, and if people are interested in reading some great stories, drama on one page and then laughter on the next, tears on the page after that, you've got to pick up Sheer Madness. It's available on Amazon. It is a page-turner. You start reading this book, you're not going to be able to put it down. But I want to take advantage of your legal expertise as both a prosecutor and a defense attorney. Take us through this situation with Eddie Gallagher in 10 seconds, if you can.
Sure.
The jury has the case. Are they going to acquit? Are they going to convict?
I think they have to acquit. It's going to get a little dicey on the sniper attacks that he's accused of, but nobody saw him pull the trigger. You know, in this death of the ISIS fighter, I think it's all circumstantial, and I think it's weak. I mean, we're talking about a national hero here, and you know, this is a modern day, mutiny.
Andrew, I want to thank you for coming down here and sharing your true stories with our audience. We want to have you back on legal issues whenever we can, and we want to have you your insights on this opioid stuff. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. After this, we mix it up. Robert Hornak and Richard Roth right after this.